always so bad at figuring out we are live. All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to Meet the Masters. I am Tim Watson, joined today live in the office, not in studio, by Jen Luneau. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's good. Things are going well, yeah.
You enjoying your time off?
Yes. Desperately needed time off from teaching.
How long? My kids had 2 weeks off. Did you have off right before Christmas Eve? Or?
I worked the day before Christmas Eve, yes. Till 3 o'clock, full day.
How are things in Philly?
The day before school let out, we had 8 out of 23 staff out with COVID. So I was not one of them. But yeah, it's been tough to get coverage and, a lot of people out sick and stress and all of that. It's a lot. So.
How are the kids doing? Like as far as like the kids, like support from the families? I know it's tough in your area, but
yeah. So parents are pretty supportive. They understand things are stressful. They're happy kids are out of the home. They know their kids have been suffering, with mental issues from being stuck at home. Staff has been suffering. So parents are pretty on board with everything. They understand their kids are behind. They understand that their kids are struggling to get stuff turned back in on time, and so we're all kind of working together. So luckily everyone, at least where I work, is on board with each other and trying their best to work together to get through, the weird situation we're in. So, yeah.
I forget about that sometimes, that like most kids kind of miss the year basically.
Yeah.
Are you finding that they're behind?
Not academically, but socially. Okay. So I teach freshmen. So the freshmen are doing better than the sophomores, I think. And I've heard this from a lot of other teachers because the sophomores never got to be freshmen. You never got to be the new kids in the building. You never saw the older kids kind of teaching you the way. And so the freshmen are doing fine, but a lot of the sophomores, I think, are struggling more than the others because they missed that whole year last year. We didn't go back at all in Philadelphia last year for the upperclassmen. So they missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's not something I think about a lot because obviously I've talked to a lot of people that are teachers as well as Tongsudo teachers. As you can see, it's so funny. You can actually see my comments. Usually I share all the comments. We got Master Leon, Master Torres, both new masters. Hello, sirs. Lindsay from Great Britain says hello. Yeah, if you have any questions or want to share a memory or a thought, please feel free to chime in. We can go, I guess we can talk about training right now as far as you're at Vaughn Dojang now.
I am at Vaughn Dojang now, that is true, which is where I started many years ago as a small child.
Well, why don't we just segue into that? Tell us how you got your start in the martial arts and how we ended up here. How long now? 25 years?
I think in January it's 23.
23?
I'm pretty sure. It's actually not the best reason why my family found Vaughn's. My parents loved the Chinese food restaurant next door. And when I was 8, I guess I said I wanted to do karate. My dad's like, I know a place. It's right next to where we get Chinese food. So it actually was nowhere near my parents' house. We drove a half hour to class. And that was January of 99. So quite a long time ago. I was there until I left for college. And up until this summer, I was training at Shin Karate in South Philly. Transition happened with that studio, and I went back to Vaughn. So I've been there for a few months, probably since around September. So,
right out of black belt testing, right?
I think I was at Shin for about 13 years before I came back to Vaughn's. Yeah.
So it was kind of split between the two.
Yeah.
I appreciate that conversation because where we are at Evolution, we have a Capriati's and we have a sushi place. Right, so
yeah,
hopefully we get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Probably not as much as the drive-by used to be.
This is pre-Google Maps.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Yeah. So, how many did the whole family train?
My dad and I started together few months later, my sister joined. My sister's older than me, and about maybe a year and a half later, my mom finally was like, all right, I'm here. And all four of us were training. We probably trained together for about 7 or 8 years. Everyone got their black belt. My dad and sister got their Edons, my mom her Chodan. And then once I went to college, my parents kind of slowed down and eventually stopped going. But yeah, my sister stopped shortly after college as well, which I think is pretty normal for most families, that either the parents stay and the kids quit, or college is a hard time to make that decision. So, yeah.
I talk about this with people that trained like you up from a kid. What was different for you? Like, why did you not stop in college?
I know my sister went to Pitt and I went to Temple, and I could get on the subway at Temple, go to Oregon Ave, and walk 7 blocks and be at Shin Karate. My sister had to take 3 buses to get to what's the name of the studio in Pittsburgh? River Valley. And so taking 3 buses is a little bit more difficult than taking 1 subway. So I think part of the reason why she stopped going was just the difficulty. She didn't have a car. And having the studio in Philadelphia it was hard not to go. At the time, a friend of mine, Lisa Collins, a prior grand champ of Region 8, she was at Drexel. We'd meet at City Hall and we'd go together. So there was definitely other motivation, and there were lots of teens at Shin. So that whole atmosphere made it welcoming and wanting to go there.
Probably, at least as far as the demographics, similar to a little bit as far as Vaughn's.
Lot of young
yeah.
people. The difference being there weren't as many senior students, and meaning rank, higher rank. Gotcha. So that's definitely a big difference between the two. What year did you go to? 08, I started at Temple.
Gotcha. Because I guess that Aaron would have been done in 05.
Yeah, we didn't overlap, and Steph and I didn't overlap either. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny that you know, there. I don't know if there's any. I'm sure there were others, but.
Oh yeah. Nikki was there one class. Nikki Dunn came to one class and didn't come back. I don't take offense. Nikki.
No. She had other stuff going on, so she trained other places.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think we've talked about this before. I believe you and your mom and I must have gotten our black belts right about the same time, because I got mine in 2004.
I know she tested with Master White, Darius.
Gotcha.
So she my sister's 0355. My dad's 0350, and I'm 0345.
Okay.
So you're probably
I'm
in there.
3'6". I'm 3'6".
Okay, I think my mom was 3'7".
Yeah. Darius is definitely 3'7".
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can gauge those by years.
Yeah, it's every 6 months. Is my dad, my sister, and I.
Yeah, that's funny. Now, going to, I guess you guys never really got to go to a black belt camp together?
We did.
Split.
When I got my Samdan. I was 17, so I had to stay with my mom. It was at Elizabethtown. My sister went, she hadn't officially quit yet, but I got mine. It was actually the day after my high school graduation. The day after my senior prom, I took my Samdan test. And the day after my high school graduation, I received my rank from Grandmaster Shin at Elizabethtown. So that was the only time the 4 of us had ever been to a camp together. So, and then I think I was the only one that went again. So, yeah.
I'm sure it's still nice that they had that background. So I'm assuming they still support you in your.
Oh yeah. Their pictures are still on the wall at Vaughn's. So if anyone's been to Vaughn's Dojang, my picture is me at 12. No one peaks at 12, so it's not the best time in my life to be forever encapsulated on that wall. But yeah, we're all up there, and it's kind of cool when I go back now to see it and reflect. All of my friends still are up there. We all still chat and hang out and see each other, which is nice, even though they all quit 13 years ago also. Right. So yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I know one of the first times I remember seeing you was in the creativity, and in that early 2000s, the Vaughn's KMAI rivalry was.
Fun fact: the exact date that Vaughn's won first place for the first time, special T-shirt, would be October 20th, 2006, in Bushkill, Pennsylvania.
Which one was that?
That's X-Men.
X-Men,
Yeah. So a big day in history is this shirt.
What was there seemed to be a core, I'm going to say, like 8 or 10 people there that really kind of, I guess, gelled as a team. Yeah.
It's interesting that none of us were from the same high school, which is odd. There was no overlap at all, except for siblings. And, we all went to Vaughn's. Vaughn's was in a pretty highly populated area, a lot of school districts and a lot of, pretty big neighborhoods around there. And we still, to this day, talk. We have a group chat. But, I don't really have friends that went to my high school still. It's the karate friends that I still have, that we just have that weird bond of being at the studio from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Saturday for demo and black belt class and helping. And, we've been in each other's weddings, and it's just Tom Center is a weird bond that brings you together. We still talk about things from the past. A couple of years ago, we watched a bunch of old demo videos. Nice. They are a little cringy and embarrassing. But yeah, it's interesting. I'll see a couple people on Thursday. I went to Italy this summer and was able to see someone from the demo team that was stationed in Italy. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, Blade, the person who played Blade in our demo. But yeah, it's crazy that connection you get, with people from Johnson.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll see on Instagram, it's like pictures from a wedding or something like that. It's like, hey, those people look familiar.
I know that. Yeah.
And then years ago, I the one kid, well, not a kid anymore. His name was Josh.
Josh Lucas.
Yeah, he was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu he went to UD and was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the same thing. It's like, oh man, I remember you.
Yeah.
There was. I'm trying to think. If Steve Pat was another one, right?
Yeah, that's the dad, Mike. Pat.
Mike. That's
right.
right.
And his sister Erica. Yeah.
And then you mentioned Lisa earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So what got you into doing? Was it the competition first, like the individual, and then you got into creativity, or?
I think creativity was first, actually. Okay. Master Vaughn always kind of pushed everyone to do tournaments, regardless of your interest in it. So I did do a tournament as a green belt. Didn't place in a single thing. And I don't think I really competed again until, I think the first year I did a demo might have been 01 or 02 at regionals. I feel like it's less stress when you're all there together. So if you lose as a team, who cares? I feel like it's not as, scary. But then that's when I started competing. My parents were like, well, you're going there anyway. We're signing you up. I'm pretty sure at the time you couldn't just sign up for creativity. You sign up for all the events. Mm-hmm. So we paid for creativity. You're doing everything. So I was pretty bad for a while. I don't think it really clicked till I was maybe 14 or 15. I specifically remember an event. Master Fisher was my center judge. And it was the only time my sister and I were in a ring together in all of our years. And we were fighting for first and second place, sparring. And Master Fisher probably doesn't remember this, but I will document it on the internet that he hyped it up. He was sibling rivalry, emphasizing it very much. And that was, I think, the first time that I had beaten someone I knew, and it was my sister, and it was weird. We never got a rematch officially. We'd spar sometimes in the studio, and she would, give me a couple of good shots, but it definitely was fun to then see the same people and, win some, lose some, and, oh, she's here? Great. I'm excited that I know it's going to be a good ring, it's going to be fun, and, it was definitely all just kind of got better and better each time of competition.
You said something it just clicked. What was it? Was it a mental thing? Was it just oh hey, I'm pretty good with my legs?
Yeah.
What was the thing that kind of was hey, I'm I'm not that bad at this.
I think it was just, I definitely, at the time, there were like a few people, actually from Shin Karate, that were like known to be like, oh, if they're in the ring, they're going to win. It goes back and forth. They're going to get first, she's going to get second, first, second. And at some point, I just was like, whatever, and like went in and ended up beating one of them in a sparring match. And I was like, that wasn't so bad. Like, I feel like it was a huge mental block. And as soon as I just went in with like, who cares? And then it was like, oh, you have to go with that mentality that anything can happen. It's not just because everyone says she's going to get first in this, she's going to get second in this, everyone else will kind of file in, that it doesn't go that way. Especially in the teenage ring, with people growing up at different rates and maturing at different rates, and the 14 to 16-year-old female ring is a lot of pump roundhouse kicks, and when you learn that's it,
right.
you know, you can maneuver and work around that, especially because that doesn't work once you hit the adult ring. That move no longer works, which I learned the hard way as well. But yeah, there was just something about like giving up on the stress and care that made things go better. You know?
I think that's we actually talked about that. We were playing the game with the kids last night, and it was it's this game called Beat That, and it has like ping pong, and you throw it, like put it in a cup and shoot. Riley was like, I couldn't get it, and then as soon as it stopped, I sunk it. It's like, well, yeah, it's because you stopped caring.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. Like, you know, you just relax, and it's obviously easier said than done, especially as a kid. Like, I started when I was 21, so I can't imagine, like, when my kids compete, it's stressful for me. Like, I can't imagine the stress, you know, of doing that individual, because I always played sport, like in baseball and things like that.
Right.
Where, kind of like you said, with creativity, like you're a team, and the stress isn't solely on you.
Right.
So,
right.
I think it's a good life skill, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody should do competition, regardless if you're winning or losing. Just even some of the things like sitting. Both Master Articos always joke that, like, I've become their substitute child now that Nicole doesn't train anymore, and Nicole and I kind of grew up together. So even though she lived in Penn State and, you know, I lived in Valley Forge, we didn't live anywhere near each other, but every tournament we were both there. You know, we sat next to each other, we knew each other. You know, occasionally we still interact on social media, even though I haven't seen her in years. So it's definitely like you create those bonds with other people that you're excited to see them, especially since this was the early 2000s. There was no social media. There was no, are you coming to the tournament? You had to just like show up and see who was there, and it was very exciting. So win or lose, it was definitely something worth, you know, experiencing and gaining those skills for sure.
No, I agree. I did the same. I have so many friends now that, you know, you go from competition, and you go to Masters Clinic and black belt camps and things like that, and you get to see them. Master Martinez, Azil, two of my favorite people, look right there. Looking forward to March. Yes, I'm looking forward to March too. Fingers crossed that nothing happens. You just recently went down, right? You went to Florida?
I did for his baby shower.
That's exciting, yes.
Yeah.
It was like a down and back, right? It was a quick
Master
shot.
Salona and I went, I think we might have been in Florida for 18 hours. If that. We didn't find an alligator, but we found an armadillo, which was not the highlight of the trip, because the baby shower was. But we both watched it for a solid 12 to 15 minutes. We were in a park, and there was an armadillo, and Angel and I were very intrigued by it.
Is that a thing in Florida?
Yes.
I had no idea. All right, cool. Yeah, so we talked about competition. We mentioned a little bit about Master Vaughn, but maybe talk about having Master Vaughn as a teacher, like personally being in the same region. It's like, oh, it's Master Vaughn, and he has obviously a very storied past.
Right. Right.
It was one of those. When did you realize, like, people knew him outside of just your karate school?
So it was definitely when I was a little bit older. Grandmaster Shin came to our gut testing a lot.
Okay.
And I guess I didn't realize that wasn't normal. Mm-hmm. It would be, you know, there'd be lots of masters from the area that would come. And I didn't think anything of it because I was so young. But I remember being probably at one of my first adult camps, and actually was a counselor at a kids camp, and I was only like 18 or 19 years old, and Grandmaster Shin and I were just having like a casual conversation, and someone was like, "What's Grandmaster Shin?" I was like, "I know it's Grandmaster Shin. I've seen him for a really long time," and I didn't really get that other people couldn't just go chat with him. And you know, I was sitting with him and Dr. Painter, and he was telling some story about someone in a fuzzy bunny outfit, and I couldn't follow what was happening because he was laughing so hard. But like, you could see other people kind of like coming in to like, what's Grandmaster Shin saying? What's he doing? And you know, if I didn't have Master Vaughn as an instructor, and this, you know, him and Grandmaster Shin were such good friends. He tells me all the time just how he would call him all the time to do these things for him, and I never realized how important that made Vaughn in the scheme of everything. You know, he definitely trained us differently. I don't think you're probably allowed to do dying cockroach anymore. Do you ever have to do that? You lay on your back, you have to shake your arms and your legs like a dying cockroach as punishment. So like if the kids were bad in class, we'd have to sit on our back and shake our hands and legs like a dead cockroach for like 10 minutes, and it was awful.
I did that in Qigong.
Yeah.
That's basically
probably the precursor. Master Martinez said the next day I saw an alligator.
I know, man. Oh, you got to go back to Florida now. We got to spend more than 19 hours there.
Yeah. But Master Vaughn was not. We didn't emphasize sparring the same way that I think, especially KMAI might have. He was very forms heavy, weapons heavy, and simple technique heavy. Like, I know for years I would walk in and he'd have the hanging bag, and he would just be swinging it himself, and then he'd spin and kick with a back kick so unbelievably fast, and the thing would fly. So that was something that he had us do a lot. He would swing the bag, and when it came in, you know, to our kick range, we'd have to spin and kick it. And if we missed, and we did it again. But things like that, which are very practical, you know, moving targets, and back kick is so powerful. And he probably has the strongest back kick I've ever seen in my life. It's just, even at his age now, still probably one of the people that I would be most scared of if I were up against them. But to bring you into this story, all of that work with Master Vaughn one time backfired on me when I did his kick at a tournament while you were one of my judges.
Oh.
And got in trouble for it, but Master Vaughn saw it and was like, that was a good kick. It just wasn't tournament appropriate.
It was a great kick.
But things like that were like normal practice that, like, we could have done that for an hour.
Right.
You know, very old school type of training where we just can do a back kick for an hour. It's just, I still like doing that, but different, a little different.
I remember he loves one steps, and he was sharing at Master's Clinic, and he'll talk, and he's soft-spoken,
yes.
Right? He doesn't raise his voice, but you know, it was one of those things. Someone punched, and he was going, and then all of a sudden he was like, "All right, I'm gonna do it fast," and it was just so fast.
Yeah.
And you don't expect that. You should, right? Because of his lineage, but you know, he doesn't show it as much as maybe he used to.
Right.
Unless you go to like instructor's class and you know, he trains there. But yeah, so how is it coming back now? Have you been able to take class with him?
Yeah, not too many, because Wednesday night is black belt class that usually he teaches, but I have a gungdo on Wednesday nights, which we can get to in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've definitely sat down and chatted a lot, which is kind of almost more fun than training because of the stories he has. And, you know, he did live in different parts of the world for a while, lived in Hong Kong for a while. And so hearing those different stories, I've been able to do a lot more since I've been back. He'll like see me on the floor and be like, "Come here." And I'll sit in the office with him for a while. But Vaughn's also has Master Lipstein, Master Altieri, Master Rosenkrantz, Master Painter. So I'm not short of knowledge and training partners. But since I've been back, I would say only once have I actually been able to physically train with him. But that's mainly my scheduling issues with doing that. But a lot of chatting, which is good for the legacy.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to do that once. I taught a leadership class one time, and I got there about 30 minutes early, and he's like, come on in, and I sat under the learning tree and just listened, and it's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And honestly, stories and memories like that is one of the reasons why I started doing this kind of interview thing. And Master Setianto caught Master Vaughn early on, so I haven't had a chance to talk to him, but I feel like he would be better on not on Zoom.
Yeah.
Like, I need to hit him and do an in-person interview.
Yeah, in his office, because he'll pull things off the shelf, and he has like original certificates in all Korean from like the 60s and 70s, and just like the amount of like primary source and resources in his office is incredible too, which is just awesome to see.
And he's been a kind of a prolific writer for the association with the amount of articles he's written for newsletters, and I think he wrote one of the training guides.
Right, correct.
So I think so.
Okay.
I probably have it on
yeah, it's somewhere in my house. Yeah.
So that's great. And you mentioned all those masters, and I'm assuming most of those people, when you left for college, most of those people weren't masters, right?
I don't think any of them were. The only ones prior to them, my first class instructor was Master Adam White. After him was Master Mark Jorgensen. So both of them, moved, Master Jorgensen moving out to Western Pennsylvania, and, Master White going to the Reading area. But pretty much everyone that taught me at some point along the line at Vaughn's is now a master, which is kind of crazy to think about, just how spread out that is.
What do you take anything from those guys? Like Master White obviously has a lot of energy.
Oh yeah. I remember one of the first classes, Master Vaughn made me cry the first time I met him. I don't know why. The man has some power over me. But then I had Master White. He was a very different energy, and I was so shy. I barely talked as a child, which is probably shocking. But I remember him being like, just yell pizza, because I wouldn't key up. He's like, just scream pizza. And I was like, okay. And I yelled pizza. And I know I've seen other instructors use stuff like that to get kids more comfortable with yelling and key upping. But that's one of my vivid memories. It's just screaming pizza, and it's just my dad and I getting sort of an intro type lesson from his classes. And he was very different from Master Jorgensen, different skill sets, both great competitors, but just different, even physical build different to get different things from them. So it's kind of interesting to as I progressed. I had someone as an instructor, then they left to start a studio, instructor left to start a studio, but they're still involved in the association, still very much a part of the association.
After they left, who was after
Dr. Rosenkrantz?
Okay.
My whole family was in his class, and then I started doing, how could I forget? From Region 7, Master Francis was also my instructor.
Yeah, of course, sure.
So him and his family moved down to North Carolina shortly before I graduated high school, I'm pretty sure. Their sons trained, but yeah, I had him as a Saturday morning black belt class. His energy, he's such a fun, loving, happy person.
I was gonna say the same. When I think of Master Francis, I think of just a very happy guy.
Yes.
He's just always in a great mood.
Yes. So I can't believe I forgot about him. But so a lot of people have come from Vaughn's and are now elsewhere and were my instructors. So I just kind of joined at the right time that I got to see all these people and train under all these people and take things from all of them.
Yeah, it's I guess Grandmaster Vaughn learned from the legacy of Grandmaster Shin of just kind of passing it on, and it's crazy to see how many instructors that he's created throughout the years.
Yeah.
When you went to Shin, was Grandmaster Shin still there? Did you get a chance to see him?
He was not teaching, but he was still upstairs.
Right.
So he would occasionally come down, and he would, yell something to little Louie, I need you to go move these boxes. They were very much family to each other. They're I need you to do this, I need you to do that. I was like, thank God I wasn't in that position that I had to just drop everything and start working for him. But Yeah, definitely he would pop in a lot prior to headquarters moving down, but at the time, Master Stelly had already purchased the studio, so it was his. Master Gordon was there at the time as well, a couple nights a week, Master Hopkins. So there have been a lot of masters in my my years. But yeah, Grandmaster Shin was there, but not in a teaching role so much, but just still working upstairs.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
his dog?
Harris says hi. Awesome. Not Claudia, just the dog.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of your role models and teachers. What do you remember when you first started to help teach class? Like what inspired you to teach and then continue to teach all these years?
I don't know if I volunteered to teach this class. When I was a blue belt, which I must have been 11, I started teaching, like basically full time. My sister and I, who would have been 13, Little Dragons class. We both were blue belts, and somehow we got that job. I don't remember how it happened, but we were responsible for kids. I know there was an adult there, but I feel like we were the ones kind of like working with the very young kids, which looking back, they're now, it doesn't seem like they're that much younger than me, but at the time they seemed so tiny to me as like an 11-year-old. But yeah, that was the first one I remembered. We did it through the summer. Eventually, I became a helper in a couple of classes, Dr. Rosencrantz's class, which is interesting now to help him. I can see he has 2 female black belts that are probably 14, 15 years old that are doing exactly what I was 20 years ago. So it's interesting to see, like, that would have been me and my sister. And now, I'm standing next to Dr. Rosenkrantz and I look over and, like, they're basically doing what I was doing. So it's, like, really interesting to see that full cycle. But yeah, I definitely helped out a lot with that. I was never old enough at Vaughn's to fully teach a class because I left when I was 17. Left the studio. So definitely a lot of helping. I loved it. I liked being up there. Currently a high school teacher, so it definitely led to something.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, Master White is a teacher. Mm-hmm. There was another girl who trained, my sister's a teacher, another girl who trained with us, Melissa Jaworski, she was a teacher, but then like transitioned to a different role. So it's interesting how many people that start young get into teaching. There's just so many people, Master Gallagher, there's so many people who trained but then also teach, and it's just such an easy transition to take the skills from the studio and bring them over, especially with like issues with behavior issues with kids. Like it definitely, Tom Sido training, I don't have behavior issues, even though I do work in a school where there are behavior issues. There's just something about the way you hold yourself and the way that you have mutual respect that's in the studio that not all teachers can naturally do. So there's definitely a connection there to being successful in teaching and the training in martial arts.
Yeah, so this past year I started substituting at my kids' school, and it was one of those where I was confident that the skills would go over, mm-hmm. but at the end of the day you never know until it happens, and it definitely does. I mean, it's different. Mm-hmm. There's no question it's different, and but yeah, it's interesting. Like, my only teaching background is Tong Sudo,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I was able to, at least in a substituting portion.
Yeah.
The kids aren't crazy for me, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's half the battle.
Yes, it really is. Yeah.
All right. Newly Master Lyons says, "Good afternoon. How you doing, sir? One of these days we'll see these people live and in person. And maybe eventually we'll get into instructor's class.
I can come in person at some point. January.
Yeah. So as far as Region 8 goes, we have 2 classes. We have instructor's class and we have leadership class for like the long tenured Samdan and Sadans, and for quite a while, 5 or 6 years, you've been the secretary for the leadership class? Coordinator. Secretary. I'm the instructor's class secretary.
Yeah, up until a couple weeks, and then I'll be transitioning. over to instructor's class.
Who's taking over your?
There are 2 people. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
to be announced.
That's public information. Yeah.
So how was obviously how was like actually training in the leadership class and then having to coordinate so many people? So how many? It was like close to 50.
50 plus, yeah. Not everybody is active,
right.
Which they're working on that now. But yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of hunting people down, and especially with COVID, not seeing people to remind them of things. And, I mean, the training is always great. It's nice in Region 8 to have so many masters available to teach us. And recently, Master Peterman has kind of joined on to leadership class. So there's been a lot more influence from him, which we've only ever talked on a personal level. So it's interesting to now train under him and to kind of get some guidance from him as well. So that was a really good bonus this year, was him kind of jumping on to be like, leadership needs a clear path, let's do it. So it was exciting to have that charge with the club and have things changing in a positive way. So, I mean, I love it. I'm excited for instructor's class. It's sort of similar in terms of having access to so many different people, but I'll be happy to pass off the responsibility to someone else for a little while.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of training, you kind of mentioned this earlier. You train in Korean sword, which is Gumdo.
Right.
Not Haedong.
No. Just regular. Plain. Has no extra word.
So, how did you get into that?
So, a couple of years ago, what year would that have been? Probably 4.5 years ago. I was still teaching in Philly at the time, and I was hit that teacher burnout point of 5 years of teaching, where they statistically, if you make it to year 5, you continue teaching. So I was well, I hit this point, and I didn't know what to do, so I ended up moving to Korea. And before I went, I was talking to Master Vaughn about it, and I was I'm going to be teaching English, little kids, completely different from high school history. And he's find a sword master. He's there's no other question. Don't do Tang Soo Do. Don't do Hapkido. Find a sword master and train in sword. He's you're never going to get the quality of sword instruction here than you are there. So it's exactly what I did. Through Facebook, luckily, there was a group called Expats Living in Korea. So I was does anybody know of a sword school? Some guy's I know Hapkido school. I was nope, I don't want that. Sword school. Eventually, another American reached out and was hey, I go to this place a couple of times a year. I don't go consistently. Here's the location. So, I went, I found the school was actually a female master, which was pretty cool to go train under a female master in an ancient martial art. And it was interesting because it was only a couple months in that some of the Koreans revealed that they spoke English. So the whole time it's a lot of pointing and no, yes, things like that. I thought I knew terminology, but reading Korean out of a handbook is much different than actual Korean. So for example, wrist in the book, I specifically remember it being spelled Chumok. To me, Chu is chew. But it's sumak. I don't know, which makes sense because it's the neck of the hand. It makes a lot of sense when I think about the Korean. But, so a lot of that was very difficult. And then, a couple people were I was embarrassed by my English, but they're speaking perfect English. So it got easier as the months went on that they could help me a lot more. It was a pretty female-dominated class, which was also interesting because I trained now in Gumdo. And for the first 2 years at the studio here in Philadelphia, I was the only female in class. So it was definitely interesting. There's now a teenager who moved up to the adult class because she trains with her dad, and an older, I shouldn't call her older, she's older than me, woman just joined a few months ago. So it was interesting, that transition of a female-dominated class compared to here, where it's just not the same and I don't know if that's because the people of Busan kind of flocked to her studio if they wanted to train under a female master. I never really asked that question. But there were plenty of men, and there were men that were just unbelievably talented, but when the master like put her uniform on and sparred them, it was like she whooped them. It was amazing. It was like an amazing thing to experience and see. And the master actually, there was a tournament, and it was a group tournament, and it needed a female, so I was on a team tournament, and the master was like, no, don't send her. She's going to be scared from ever doing gumdo again, because I had to compete in the black belt division with my team. I was like, don't worry. Like, I don't care if I get hit or whatever. And the other two women were so good that all I had to do was not lose quickly to give them a breather. So it was, I'm pretty sure it was either 2 or 3 minute rounds. I didn't score a single point. But I didn't lose, so I ran down the clock for 3 minutes. So my other two partners who did so well got a breather each time. So it was just like, it was an unbelievable experience. A couple of the people, I still follow them on Instagram and kind of see what they're up to in Korea. And it's awesome. I'm ready to go back. Great vacation spot. You probably heard me say this at a black belt camp, that I asked the room how many people have been to Europe, and like everybody's hand went up. And I asked how many people have been to Korea, and it was like crickets. So I highly push it. It's a long flight, but once you're there, it's cheap and amazing and welcoming, and people speak English, and the signs are in English, and it's great. I mean, and the history, the museums you can go to with, you know, martial arts and everything are pretty amazing. Some of the things that are in the book are in North Korea, like the men grappling on the cave wall is in North Korea, so you can't go to that, but it's just crazy how much stuff they have, you know, to experience.
There you go.
It's my plug for Korea.
Yes, go to South Korea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were in Busan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to go so bad. Yeah. Going back to your tournament and kind of not you survived.
Yes.
Did those instincts come from like having a sense of timing and distance?
Yeah.
When, you know.
And I'm tall compared to the average Korean,
okay.
So I had an advantage in that aspect. But with Gumdo, it's every point has to be incredibly precise.
Okay.
As opposed to like, you could win a sparring match by just throwing your leg out there. But in Gumdo, you have to simultaneously stomp your front foot, like it makes a clap. It's not like your heel. You have to yell where you're hitting. So I'd have to say muddy to hit your head and hit simultaneously and follow through to prove that I hit you without me being hit at the same time, because then it would be like, if you think of the theory of war, if we both cut each other in the head, we're both dead.
Right.
So all of those things have to work perfectly. So in order to get a point, it's not just that I hit you with my sword on your head. It's significant layers to it to score a point. So all of that took a very long time to click. Even today as I train, sometimes I'm like, ooh, that was a great point. And then, nope, wasn't a point. So it's very difficult in that sense. So I was able to see the technique coming, and I could do a lot of blocking, which in theory, their theory is you shouldn't block. I should move faster when I see your sword to hit you first, but you know, if I have to block, I'm going to block.
Right.
So it was a lot of that. I could see things going. Like even today when I train, they're like, you have timing. We know you can move and maneuver, and all of those things go together, but it's that perfect precision that's very difficult to do, especially with gloves and heavy gear and everything on. A lot of protective gear when you're hitting with Shinai. So.
And that's predominantly what you do, is you do the sparring aspect of it.
Yes.
This might be, we'll see how this goes. What are your thoughts on the sword that we do as far as like if the association goes? Do you think there is some value? Have you taught like any? I know it's hard not having the gear and stuff.
Yeah. So when we occasionally do cutting in Gumdo, and we get the live blades out, and I guess I shouldn't say live blades, but they call it live blade because it's not a Shinai.
Okay.
Gumdo,
so it's not sharp.
No, the master does, and he's unbelievably amazing. If you live in the Philadelphia area, Master Kim, he's in Elkins Park, unbelievable. But it's definitely a lot different. We have one form that I know. It starts exactly the same as our second sword form, right? You start from that 2B thing and like you cut up and cut over. But it's definitely, I feel like we in our forms are too close to ourselves when I watch people do sword. When in reality, if you think of a sword, I don't want to cut close to me. I don't want to be close enough that your sword can cut me. So I think there's a lot of just in practice that we're doing wrong, and we don't do fundamentals the way, like we don't do cuts the way that we do bong spins, right? Or we have knife defense, which leads to the knife form. Although we have the Kicho form, it still doesn't teach you how to cut or, you know, how to block or anything like that. So I definitely think it's something to consider adding to our curriculum. It's just some basic sword techniques. There are sword one-steps. But yeah, definitely just the different muscle groups that I feel going to Gumdo. And we'll do 100 straight overhead cuts as part of warm-up. You know, not as a whole class or a lesson, but that's just standard procedure for the day. There's only really 3 moves in Gumdo. A hoodie attack, sumok, and muddy. That's it. So to have 3 techniques that we do over and over and over again, it's definitely a little different in the practitioner aspect of it. That's these 3 moves. We got to get them right instead of side kick, jump spinning side kick, spinning side kick. So there's definitely a difference there, and I definitely think we need to very much so practice sword more than we are. It might be the best clean answer I could give to that
fine.
question.
So if there was one thing that someone could work on as far as just an overhead cut, do you have any suggestion?
The one thing that the one way that my instructor discusses it is that you do want to move it almost like a fishing line, right, where my arms are fully extended out, not close to my body. I'm not cutting like this. I want to cut out as far as I can away from me. The other thing is that, and I see this a lot in tournaments, is that your hands should never be close to each other, right? I'll have no control. We don't do the staff like this, right? We keep the distance between it, right? One at the very base and one at the top of the handle just gives more control. And I know you've heard this before, the whole wringing of the towel, right? It's loose. My hands could almost be open, and then I wring the towel to stop the sword. So I think doing things like that, there's things that are kind of fun, like you can light a candle and you have to stop and knock out the flame. So things like that I think are easy practice, but definitely trying to cut something will change your perspective. Even just a piece of paper will change people's perspective a lot on what cutting is. But yeah, definitely just like the fishing line thing is like a good way to think about that technique.
When Master Setianto told me that years ago, it was kind of a light bulb. I always think of it as making sure you always pull this, because what a lot of people do is they bring them over together. They bring both hands over together, whereas, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think of this as the bottom hand is the motor and this is the steering wheel. Right. Because I always see people go like this, and it's like you got to bring it over first and then out. Right.
Left hand is like kind of your power, while the right controls. Yeah. Right. Another thing that I get yelled at a lot in my Gumdo school is that at no point in time, except if you're warming up your shoulders, is the blade along your spine. Because I'm completely vulnerable like this. The furthest we go back is here with the blade at like a 45-degree angle off of my head. Yeah, so I know I do see a lot. I think there are some moves in our form that do come back really far and we come in, but in a, like, I guess, thinking of it as a chamber, it wouldn't make sense to go that far back. In terms of like a transition, it does, but not as a chamber between moves, because I'm completely vulnerable if my hands are behind my head and I'm completely exposed. So that's something I get yelled at sometimes. Going too far back. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's interesting, and again, something we've had some paper cutting, like putting up newspaper, and it's incredibly hard to cut that way. Right. But like you said, it kind of gives you a glimpse into how you should do it.
Yeah.
I put kids in front of air shield or the heavy bags and try to explain like you can't push a sword through someone.
Right.
Unless it's not a English broadsword.
Yeah.
Cool. So we got about 10 minutes left. Let's see. What have we not talked about? We talked about your transition back into Master Vaughn's studio. I know for a long time you were Samdan.
A long time, yeah.
How long?
It was between promotions. It was 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're still not. One of the kids, Master Roman, visited us last week, and one of the kids was talking about how long it takes to get to belt, and he was 13 years.
Yeah.
From Samdan to Sadan.
Yeah.
Just because.
When you're young, you get. It's hard to remember people are not young anymore. Right. I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that's what part of it was? You were.
I think people still don't know that I'm over 30. I think they haven't realized that I'm not like 16 anymore, which is I'm flattered. But I definitely still think to this day people still call me Lauren, which is my sister's name. She hasn't trained in 15 years.
Right.
But I definitely think there's a difference when you grow up in something and people have seen you since you're so small to like process that I'm way closer to my current age and being an adult, like from 18 to now, than I was from 18 and joining. So, I've passed that threshold where I've been in it more as an adult, technically, even though I personally don't feel like anyone's an adult till they're like 22. But, I've been in this longer from 18 and above than below 18. So it's definitely, I think, hard for people to process that idea.
Do you think there's what point where it's like, oh yeah, like, where they remember, like, she's a legit martial artist and an adult, yes.
Yeah. I'll say, I won't mention this master's name, but I was talking to a master once at a kids camp, and I was, like, talking about my students. I was like, oh, yeah, the high school I work at, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, what high school do you go to? And I was like, no, I'm a teacher at the high school. And they're like, oh, I thought you were in high school. I was like, nope. Nope, I'm not. I have been yelled at. I've worked in schools where you need a uniform. I've been yelled at for not being in uniform before. But I don't know when things changed. I don't know if it's when I guess maybe even moving to Korea was a big difference because you can't do such a trip without being a real adult. Like, sure, you could study abroad in college, but it's not the same as up and moving to a place that's a 13-hour time difference and completely different language. So that might have transitioned some people's minds. But at that point, I'd been to clinic for 1 year when I went there. So I don't really know what changed for people.
Yeah. When I think of you, I think of, like, obviously my wife and Angel Salona and Steph Mabrook. As at least in Region 8, like, there's some pretty awesome martial artists that I guess you were just a little behind those.
I never competed with Aaron. I did with Steph and with Angel. And to plug Angel Salona, my very first Worlds, I just turned 18. And I'd just gotten my Samdan, and Angel was visibly pregnant.
Yes.
Probably 5 or 6 months pregnant. Swept weapons, swept forms, and then could not compete in sparring because she was, 5 or 6 months pregnant. And I was just sitting there like, oh my God. Like, I'd done well in the kids division, and that was the time, it was 17 to 34 at the time. I was like, oh my God, what have I walked into? So it's just pretty awesome to have seen them. I'm a couple years younger than them. I competed with Steph, and that was back when the women's ring was pretty big. So Erin was in the 27 to 34, and I was in kind of the 17 to 26. But yeah, they were people that I saw as a kid. My parents, my dad in particular, knows the name Erin Cataldi. He remembers it from tournaments being heard. If I said Aaron Watson, you have no idea who I'm talking about. But he's so far removed from Tongsudo that he knows that name. He knows Muhammad Mabrook. He knows these different names from the past just from tournaments, even though he never really competed. but he was there because the rest of us competed. So like he knows all of that stuff, which is like kind of interesting. Like later on, be like, "Oh, where are you going?" Like, "I'm going to Aaron Cataldi's house." He's like, "Oh, okay." Like I can't say something else, which is just it's kind of cool, that whole dynamic.
Right, when they can at least still. That's still one of my favorite stories at Angel. I was competing, and one of the dads came over, and because Erin was in the same, I think she was, or was she in the?
I don't think she was.
She must have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. This dad comes up and he goes, "Oh, I was over and saw Erin, and I just saw this really pregnant woman. She was awesome.
And she did the knife form and Jindo as a Samdan and beat all of us."
I was like, so. I know that. I know exactly who you're talking about, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Because I've trained with her for years, and she's one of the hardest workers. And
yes.
Like when she does do something, she puts everything into it.
Yeah. When I visited Master Martinez, she went out on like a 3-mile run, and we're sitting back eating some delicious Puerto Rican snacks. I don't know what it was, but it was amazing. And we're like, she like came in and she's like sweating. And she's like, "I had to get my run in." And we're like, "Good for you, Angel." Yeah.
She's often way more motivated than I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because we'll get to training and she's like, "Well, we just want to talk," and she's like, "I gotta get a good workout." We gotta stop talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So we are getting close to the hour mark. Is there anything that we haven't touched base on that you want to talk about, or closing remarks before we finish up?
Oh, I have one plug.
All right.
Please encourage your students to YouTube how to count to 10 in Korean, because I sit in some leadership class or black belt camp and I hear the craziest counting to Korean. So go to YouTube, find someone that's Korean, counting in Korean, and memorize it, practice it, and share it with your students, because we're very bad at Korean for being a Korean martial art. We don't have a lot of Koreans, but in Gumdo, I'm pretty much the only non-Korean in class. So hearing them count has definitely changed the way I count. They bow into class different than we do, and it sounds different than what we do. Like instead of kuki bure, it still says kuki, but it's kuki ade hanye, which like I don't know what it means, but I know that's what they're saying because I have it in Hangul for me to practice. But that's just something I think that we can preserve, regardless of our grandmaster no longer being Korean. I think we can still keep that legacy a little bit. Hangul is also very easy to learn. It's ridiculously easy to learn as reading the terminology. So I think that's something that in general we should practice more, is that if we're going to say something, we should say it right. There's like no point in us, trying to speak Korean if we're not going to speak Korean. So.
You're going to perpetuate it.
Yeah, that's my last plug.
I'll make sure I'll have to get you to send me a YouTube link, and I'll put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming and hanging out and talking for a while. If anyone has any other comments, please share. I'll be sure to I'll screenshot and send them your way. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you later.
Support your public school teachers.
There you go.